This support for the Reform Party is very, very deep. It takes a lot of effort to keep a political party moving forward, and this party is moving forward. And we have to keep going for the sake of this country, for the sake of all of us, for the sake of our families. I'd like to introduce Bob Mills to you. Bob is no stranger to many of you. Bob is the MP for Red Deer. Bob is one of the leaders in our caucus. One of the stories he tells us, he was in Chile on one of his tours, and to find out how grassroots Chileans felt about their pension plan, which is very similar to the one we've proposed, he actually went and did some door knocking. So I wonder what people thought when this Reform MP from Canada came knocking on their door asking them about their pension plan. But that just shows you the dedication and interest he has in his job. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Mills.
Well, I want to thank Rick. Certainly, it's my pleasure for Nicole and I to be here, and we thank you very much for inviting us. You know, I think as well, Ray Speaker, I can probably blame him for getting me involved in politics way back 35 years ago or so, or maybe my father who took me to political meetings. My mother tells the story that in grade 2, I was writing political slogans on the blackboard against Tommy Douglas. I apparently didn't like him at all well, and so I don't know what that was all about. She tells that story a lot anyway. But certainly it's a pleasure to be here and to congratulate you on sending Rick Casson to Ottawa. We have a class of 20 1997 graduates, and certainly Rick has to be in that top category. And I'm not just saying that because he said nice things about me, but I really truly mean that. Some of the guys, you know, you don't get to know very well. Some of them don't seem to really be part of the team that the dedicated team that we are trying to build there to really change things, change the status quo. Rick is a team player. Rick is there. We know we can count on him. We know he's not going to put his foot in his mouth. He's not going to do things that are going to hurt the party or hurt any of our caucus members. And that's important because we have such a challenge. They dislike us so much down there that we really need to stick together and make it happen. So I thank you for sending us Rick. And certainly I'm proud to be in the caucus with him. And he just does a great job for us. And of course, he's you know, now our environment critic, and I look forward to the sorts of things he's going to be able to do, and that's going to be a real challenge for you. Now, I have to tell you a couple of things just to give you an idea about Planet Ottawa before I talk about this Asian trip that I really want to talk about. And the first thing that kind of says it all, I think, is something happened to us last week in our Foreign Affairs Committee. We put forward a motion to have Mr. Chrétien and Mr. Axworthy appear before our committee to tell us about APEC. Foreign Affairs set up the APEC meeting in Vancouver. I was at the APEC meeting in Vancouver, and so it seemed totally reasonable that we should be able to ask them some questions. They won't appear in Vancouver to answer any questions, so why not appear before their peers to tell them about this? Sounds pretty reasonable. Sounds so reasonable that Ted McWhinney, a Liberal, stood up and said, you know, that's a really good motion, that's a good idea. The whip's office, the whip was there, tapped him on the shoulder, whispered something in his ear, and you know what happened to the vote? Ted McWhinney put his head down. This is a 74-year-old academic, has written 20-some books, is very knowledgeable in foreign affairs, put his head down and voted with the Liberal 9 members. We lost the vote 9-8, and the next day he was kicked off of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now that's how the place works, okay? If you think it's democratic, you can forget it. In Planet Ottawa, there is no democracy. In Planet Ottawa, the party runs the show. Now we've got to change that. We've got to make MPs accountable to the people back home. I mean, that's why we went there. And if we can't change this system, it doesn't matter what the name is of the party. They're all the same. If we can't change that place, nothing will happen. And that's why I really believe the United Alternative is so necessary. To break the status quo, we're going to have to negotiate something to give people a broader base of alternatives to defeat those Liberals. Once we do that, we can become the government, we can change the system, and then hopefully some of us can go home and enjoy our lives at home, because it'll be, then government will work again. But we must break this party thing, we must break this power, we just have to do it. And just watching what happens to a guy like Ted McWhinney, and now he's literally embarrassed if he puts his head down all the time. The guy's been destroyed, and he's a Liberal member. And that's what they do to their people. They badger them into voting the way they want. Now, that's not democracy. That's not the Canada that I want to be part of, and we've got to change it. So that's what keeps you going, is things like that. The EI, you should be really upset about that. The government's collecting $350 a person per year too much. If you're a businessman, they're collecting $500 per employee too much. 33% over collecting $20 billion, and they're stealing it and using it to balance the budget. Now that money's for unemployment, for the rainy day. And the law says if you over-collect, you've got to give it back to the owners. So what are they going to do? They're going to change the law so that they can continue to steal that money. You should be furious. You should be just absolutely livid, mad because of that sort of thing. Agriculture. Farmers aren't having a problem. Planet Ottawa doesn't know farmers are having any kind of a problem. You'd never know it if you're in Ottawa, and that's where their members stay. Canada Pension. When I went door knocking in Chile, I'll tell you, that opened my eyes. Those people are proud of their pensions. They've been on it for 26 years, and they're proud of it because it's private and it's theirs, and they have an account with their name on it. Not like here, where they take the money and throw it into the general revenue and it's lost. We could go on with the arrogance. The cracks are finally there. Like, the good thing is the cracks are finally there. And they will bring themselves down, but we have to be there with an alternative. I expect all of you to be at this convention, 19th to the 21st in Ottawa, because this will be historic. This will be what will form the next government of Canada. It will be reform policies with a bigger attraction, and it will get rid of some of those things that people have been lied to that we stand for. We're going to broaden our base, and we can then form government. So I hope you're as enthusiastic as we are about it, and I really think it is our future as a party. Anyway, I will give you a chance to ask any questions. I'd love to answer them, but I better get on with my presentation because the lights will go out or something and I'll get cut off. I have to talk really fast because this was 21 flights in 24 days. Let me tell you where we went. We went to Japan into China, from China down to Hong Kong over to India, 4 or 5 places in India, then up to Pakistan, a couple places in Pakistan, then over to London, 1 day in London, and then over to Paris to the OECD, and basically that's a think tank, and I'll tell you what that's all about. What was the purpose of the trip? 3 things, basically. First, to look at the Asian downturn. What effect might that have on Canada? What effect might that have on Lethbridge, on Red Deer, on Vancouver, on Ottawa, on, the whole country? What effect? Number 2, to look at the security issue of Pakistan and India. I have a particular interest in what we might be able to do there, and I'll just give you a brief rundown of that. And I think there will be an op-ed piece in the Globe and Mail next week I'll tell you a bit more about what I think should happen there. And then the third area, some specific things like human rights in China, not the way the Prime Minister did it, but the way it should be done. Out in the open, out front, confront them, ask them, and they say, wow, these guys are powerful. Not wimpy behind closed doors and not prepared to talk about it.